camera highlights in the world of sport.
Dapper Paul Runyon of White Plains, New York, tees off in the 36-hole final of the PGA Championship at Shawnee on the Delaware. Slammin' Sammy Snead of West Virginia. Arriving at the green of the short fifth hole, Snead lines up a 6-foot putt. His ball misses the cup, and Runyon is stymied. To have the hole, he must sink this putt, but how? After much thought, Runyon decides to use a niblick. The crowd is tense. So is Runyon, for that matter, but watch. Runyon, 5 up at the end of the morning round, tees off in the final 18. A cool, deliberate sharpshooter whose peculiar form makes his performance all the more amazing. Outdriven 30 and 40 yards by the more powerful Snead, Runyon's accuracy with short woods, irons, and particularly his putter proves the old golfing axiom that they don't pay off on the drives. Arriving at the 25th, Runyon, short pitch to the green, stops within goodly putting distance of the cup. And the diminutive New York pro has the coveted PGA crown within his grasp. And there it is, the $1,000 putt that brings Paul Runyon the PGA title for the second time in his golfing career.
Hi, I'm Sam Snead. In regards to Paul Runyon, he was known as Little Poison. Paul wasn't a big guy by any means. He didn't hit the ball very far, but oh, what a short game he had, second to none. I had the pleasure of playing Paul in the PGA Championship, and I'd outdrive him some holes almost 100 yards. But, you know, the old saying is, you drive for show and putt for dough. So that's what happened. He killed me on the green. I never saw a man had the touch or any better touch than Paul Runyon.
Looks like another good birdie putt.
That did turn out a little better than expected. Glenn, I think you better remove the flag, if you will, please.
Okay.
Gee, that turned out rather nicely.
Sure did. Nice birdie, Paul.
Good morning, folks. I'm Paul Runyon. Welcome to La Quinta and another beautiful day in the desert. We're going to discuss 2 of the shots to lower scoring, putting and chipping. Since we're here, let's get on with the business at hand. Glenn, please give me 2 clubs and my putter. I want the clubs for props. What I'm doing now is preparing one of the best putting instructors you can have. This is a simple device that makes it much more practical and easy to do the things that I feel are so important in the art of putting. Putting is one of the shots in golf that must be methodized. You must not leave it to the whims of the individual. To begin with, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. First, let's place the hands on the club in such a way as to minimize wrist motion. We want the lower hand to be 45 degrees back of vertical and the upper hand to be 45 degrees in front of vertical. We want the grip equal in both hands. We want the eyes to be directly over the line through the ball, but not over the ball itself, because we cannot hit the middle of the ball. We can only hit the back side of it. Thus, the back side of the ball needs to be a fraction to the left of the suspension point being the clavicle or the nape of neck. That wants to be even with the back side of the ball, so you will hit the ball at the bottom of the arc of the swing. Grip the club firmly enough that as you swing it backward and forward entirely with the arms, that the momentum of the club will not cock the wrist. We do not want wrist motion in it. Once we have gotten this far in the particulars, the next point of importance is to make a stroke that is entirely with the arms, with no movement in the body, no movement in the wrist. Stroke the ball rhythmically and smoothly with the arms. The avoidance of three putting is dependent upon great distance control. But the important part in all of this, once you're accustomed to striking the ball with a one-lever stroke, your distance control is much more accurate because you can control the speed of any action with one motion better than you can with two or with three. And at the same time, two movements destroys the accuracy of the stroke to a very great degree. We want to remember that we still have to develop a rhythm in the stroke. It has to have an accelerating motion as it goes through. We're trying our dead level best to catch the ball at the very bottom of the arc of the swing so that you roll the ball in a flywheel action, that it is not going to turn. Now let's deal with the putter. If I put my face of my putter down open, even if I strike the ball with the most perfect path, the ball will spin crazily offline to the right. Or you may have it closed at right angle all the time. And that causes the balls to spew all over the place. Most frequently, the one that they don't recognize is that they'll have their left hand farther forward than their right is back, and that makes the face of the club fly open as they stroke. Or conversely, if they've got their right farther back than their left is forward, that will cause the face during the stroke to close. But at any rate, we want the face of the club to stay at right angle and the hands be placed in such a way as to keep the face at right angle as it swings back and forth. We do not want any motion in it as it swings, or we don't want it to be at variance with right angle in the address position. May I have a ball, please? In this case, I'm going to hit this ball with the stroke correct, but the face of my club initially is a little open. And as a result, even though the swing goes straight through there, the ball will hit the right-hand side. Then it's a matter of rhythm and speed to contain the stroke accurately and still produce a distance that's in keeping with the distance you want the ball to go. For example, if I'm trying to make the putt in one, direction is far more important than distance, as long as you understand the never up, never in theory. When you are back sufficiently far that one putts are not reasonable, but the avoidance of three is the thing that you're after, then distance becomes much more important. And in this respect, I like to have a field in which we're trying to stop the ball. If I'm 20 feet from the hole, I'm satisfied to stop the ball anywhere in a 2-foot circle. Because if it stops in the 2-foot circle, the longest putt I can have is 1 foot. If I'm 30 feet away, I allow a 3-foot circle, so that the 18-inch putt is the longest. At 40 feet, a 4-foot circle. At 50 feet or over, a 5-foot circle. Because we should have enough skill in our touch to keep a large percentage of your putts within a 5-foot radius. Incidentally, we don't want the students to use this prop too much, because this can become a baby blanket. They get to depend on it too much. After they've done this a while, I ask them to take the props away and then try to set up as accurately the same way. We're still going to go through that same procedure with the feet at right angle to the line, the face of the club at right angle to the line. Then if the body is right and the spine is at right angle, the swing will go parallel. It's an automatic thing. If you've got it facing right angle and you make the stroke correctly, you'll have a fair degree of success. I wish I could say that this is going to make the student make all the putts. All it's going to do is make them make a bigger percentage of them. They're going to be a better putter on their good days, and they're going to be a less bad putter on their bad days. Methodization is a must. This setup is designed to dramatize some very, very important putting principles, if you will. If a person's touch is good enough that he can pass the hole consistently without passing it so far that he would three-putt, then he must pass the hole. In other words, uses the never up, never in principle. In this case, I'm gripping the club sufficiently firmly, however, that my wrists will not get into play. And I want this ball to pass the hole somewhere between 6 and 12 inches, because it has been tested and proven that that's the distance at which you'll make the highest percentage of putts. If that had have missed, it would have stopped somewhere 6 to 8 inches past the hole. Now, as we get farther back, it becomes more and more impractical to consciously try to pass the hole. From here, all I'm trying to do is to lag the ball into a 2-foot circle. In this case, my grip is a little bit tighter because I want to control a tiny bit more energy. It's true I'm going to have a longer backswing, but not a very significantly longer swing. The main touch comes in the speed with which it's going through it and the rhythm with which it's going through it. But in this case, if I stop this ball anywhere in a 2-foot circle, I've done what I set out to do. And my temperature won't go up 1 iota if I hit the ball dead in the hole and 1 inch short, because I'm not using the never up, never in principle. I'm using the lag principle. Now again, the same thing applies, but the grip has to become a little firmer because I'm going to hit the ball with a little more speed, and I don't want the momentum of the club to cock my wrist or get any play in it. But again, I'm trying now to stop it inside of a 3-foot circle, any place inside it. The stroke becomes a little longer, but mainly becomes a little faster. I want to hit the ball with a short, firm stroke that stops that ball distance-wise more accurately. Here, this is a putt where if all of the putts were this long, nobody in the world would have an average of under 2. They'd have an average of a fraction over 2. Because they charge the putts too much. They can improve their putting technique by having a stroke that's a fraction longer and a fraction faster, and then try to stop the ball anywhere inside of a 3-foot circle, a 4-foot circle, or a 5-foot circle. Here, this is one of those where I'd like to stop it anywhere within a 4-foot circle. So my stroke is a tiny bit longer with a little tighter grip so that there won't be too much play, and I hit the ball with a little faster stroke. Gee, this is a pattern that pleases me a great deal, because in the ball that is whole, it was putted from about 6 feet using the never up, never in theory. And the other balls that are an unusually good pattern was putted from 20, 30, and 40 feet. And this is what I believe will be the result, maybe not quite this dramatic, but will be the result if they know where to stop the never up, never in theory and begin to use the lag theory. I think this is a very big factor in the improvement in a person's putting. Let's discuss some of the problems that we see every day on the putting green. Glenn, what causes the yips?
I don't know, Paul. I've never had them.
Oh, you lucky devil. Put us some balls here, and let's discuss what I feel about the yips. It's true that this is the most difficult of all the things to cure, because it's in the mind, and the most common cause of getting the yips is the fear of humiliation or lack of success. And the shorter the putt, the more likely the person is to have the yips. But the only thing that I can suggest to get rid of it is to work diligently on taking the hands out of the stroke, because the yips don't usually start in the body. They usually start in the hands. You get so pent up and tense that the hands do silly things. So just stroke it rhythmically with your arms, keeping the body quietly in position, and make the stroke where you're just propelling the ball along the green with a smooth stroke. You must trust the style. If you try to make something happen, it's not going to happen. You've got to have a system that will let it happen. Keep your mind at ease, keep your muscles here at ease, but keep these treacherous, jumpy hands out of the stroke. Now, another very common thing is when the balls keep squirting to the right of the hole. Now, that can happen from several causes. We can get the habit of letting our body turn a little to the right going back and not realize we've done it, and then stroke it so the ball's passing off to the right. Even if we've hit it correctly, it's going to pass to the right. That's pushed out to the right. Or We can be keeping our body in a beautiful position throughout the stroke, but I've gotten the habit of gripping the club with my right hand or my lower hand too high. The elbows are out of balance. Even though the face of the club is at right angle, as I stroke it, those arms seeking a level will open the face of the club and cause you to push it to the right. Or yet a third and least common cause, but it's not quite as damaging, is that I can be doing everything right, and as I hit the ball, my body leaning a tiny bit to the left makes the ball, as a general thing, go off to the right a tiny bit. In that one, as I lean forward, I had the success of turning a little with it and made two wrongs make a right. But if I'm leaning forward with no turn to the left, that makes you catch the ball on a descending blow, at which point the face of the club is pointing a little bit to the right of the line. Now, all of those things on the left side are exactly opposite. If I have a tendency to address the ball with the face of the club pointing to the left, even if I swing straight to it, that caused me to pull the ball off to the left of the hole. Or if I've started without realizing I've done so, with the left foot turned out so that my spine is at an angle to the left of where it should be, even if I strike the ball squarely, I'm now pulling it to the left because my body is out of position. I want to get my body to stay at right angle. Or I can have this is the third and least common cause of pulling it, but it is one it's difficult to discern. My right lower hand is in the right position and my upper hand is in the wrong position. Even if I start at right angle, my head stays still, the elbows will seek a level and the ball will go off to the left. Now we can correct all of those problems that we've discussed by doing it correctly, by going about it where your hands are equally balanced on either side of the shaft, where your feet are both at right angle across the line. Don't let one of them turn out. That'll cause you to have a tendency to pull them or have to cut them to make them go straight. Get the feet in the right position, get the hands in the right position so that the elbows are already in balance, then keep your blinking head still, and then stroke the ball with your arms sufficiently firmly to make the ball go 6 inches beyond the hole. Now let's do a little practice for fun and profit. And when I am practicing, I don't aim at the hole. I go over near the edge of the green someplace where the turf is usually better. It's not spike marked as badly. And I then set the ball down with a coin immediately outside so the putter will not hit it. I then go about my routine, not thinking about anything excepting to hit the ball a given power each time. And if I now pay no attention to where that ball is, and I can produce the same position to the putter and the same speed, the balls will keep bumping each other. But this is the practicing I like to do. Just keep swinging it back and forth, putting the ball in exactly the same spot, getting the face of the club to line up correctly, getting my body to stay still and stroke the ball with a rhythm that will pile those balls up both directionally and distance-wise. I don't want to have to think of how I'm doing it. I want to think of just getting a rhythm to it, and if I can produce that, the balls will collect themselves both directionally and distance-wise in a very tight pattern. Once I have gotten enough practice till I feel like I can do that at several distances, then I take a different tack. I then put the balls around the hole at different distances, a little different variations in distance and a little difference in direction. They're just encircling the hole so that you get a different touch and a different alignment every time. And then I would start with this one, give it a quick read. This looks like it should go fairly straight. Again now, I'm trying to hit the ball 6 inches beyond the hole with a nice firm contact that sends the ball toward the hole with no right or left hand English. Just keep making that rhythmic stroke back and forth. I do as I make a change, take another look to see if there's a break. If this breaks at all, I think it'll break that way. But I'm going to hit it fairly straight because it looks like it might not break at all. Now that wasn't quite bold enough. That didn't hit the back of the hole quite as hard as I'd like it to do. It went in, but it didn't go in with the authority I'd like to see it do. This is where you set a goal for yourself. If I've got 10 or 15 balls around and none of them are longer than 5 feet, I'll set a goal of 13 out of the 15 made, or some such figure as that. If I make it too often, if I reach my goal too often, I've given myself a task that's too easy. So I tighten the screws down a little bit. Here's another one of those situations, quite different from the others, where we're putting for fun and profit. But it's now in-line work. It's true that the putts are a little longer and we may not make as many of them, but it's a wonderful sort of practice. Again, I'm going through that same principle. I want to get it squared up to that and then stroke it with my arms so that and hit it hard enough that if it misses, it'll go somewhere between 6 and 12 inches beyond the hole. Favorite shots here. This is a chip shot because it's uphill and it's a good lie, and you never play a pitch shot if a chip shot will work. So let's go at this with an 8-iron. The fact that this is a fairly steep uphill lie, even the 8-iron is going to propel the ball fairly high in the air. And it's my judgment that it can land safely on the green without overrunning the hole. Remember now, there are two grips in golf. One that's used for all shots except putting and chipping, and one that's used for putting and chipping. In this grip, my hands oppose each other a total of 90 degrees. The lower hand is 45 degrees back of the shaft. The upper hand is 45 degrees ahead. The arms are attached at a 45-degree angle. I then settle myself over the ball with the ball in the middle of my body with my weight off balance a little toward the front so that I strike the ball a slightly descending blow. Then with no wrist motion at all, I try to propel the ball on the green on the fly and let it run its way toward the hole. If I've got the right club and the right distance on the green, it will stop fairly close. Glenn, what club and what shot would you do for this ball?
I would use a 7-iron and chip and run it.
I think that's a wise decision, so let me have the 7-iron. However, we've placed another ball here that's approximately 3.5 feet in front of this one. And that's going to change this shot into a 6-iron. But let's try this one. The club selection is vital. In this case, I'm using the one lever stroke, ball in the center of the body, weight off balance toward the front foot, hitting the ball safely on the green like a spot bowler, and keeping the wrists out so that the ball will have no backspin and let the ball hit on the green and run toward the hole. Now, this shot is exactly the same, but since it has to pitch a much shorter distance, then I want a club that's got a little less loft so it will cause the run to be a little greater in relationship to the distance that it's carried. And since that other club was the perfect one, I think this is the perfect one for this. If I hit it just safely on the green, it should stop close enough to the hole for one putt. And there's one thing I'd like to get on record right now. Anybody that puts it from this far off the green with a putter, and me putting it with the right club, I think I can beat him. Let's go at it mathematically for a second. If I carry a 3-iron 3 feet on an average speed of green, either uphill or downhill, it runs about 10 times as far as it carries. On the other hand, if I'm carrying the sand wedge on that same green, 3 feet, it runs about 1.5 as far as it carries. And yet you could say, well, why not pitch the sand wedge farther so it runs? That's drawing to inside straights and poker. We want you to hit the shot that has the least air time. If I'm that close to the edge of this green, I want my 4-iron, because the 4-iron on a fairly slow green will run the ball about 5 times as far as it carries. So I'm only going to carry it here. I don't want to hit it here. I want to carry it just safely on the green so that it becomes more and more accurate. The more it runs, the less hard you have to hit it, and the less hard you have to hit it, the more accurate it becomes. If the combination of two distances, distance on the fly and distance on the run, permits me to use a 5-iron or a 6-iron, I hold more of them in one than I take 3. But if the green is of average speed and level, the 3-iron will run the ball about 10 times as far as it carries. The 4-iron about 9 times as far as it carries. The 5-iron about 8 times as far as it carries. The 6-iron about 7 times as far as it carries. The 7-iron about 5 times as far as it carries. The 8-iron about 4 times as far as it carries. The 9-iron about 3 times as far as it carries. The pitching wedge about 2 times as far as it carries, and the sand wedge about equal distance or a fraction more than it carries. The putter will hit it straighter than the chip shot, no argument. But it's got to traverse through terrain that will negate that advantage. Certainly, if you don't know how to chip, putt it. But let's get so we know how to chip. Let's discuss some problems that we see in the chipping area every day. Glenn, loan me the 3-iron, please.
Why a 3-iron from here, Paul?
Because, Glenn, in this case, if I use a more lofted club than the 3-iron, I have to hit it farther in the green to make it run down to that flag that's 60 or 70 feet away from me on a green that's a little on the slow side. So in the case of the problems that we're going to discuss, so many students keep their weight too far back, and even if they made a good stroke, they scoop the ball and have it flop up in the air and come down like a wounded duck, and it doesn't run true on the ground. But if they were to take a less lofted club, keep the ball back far enough and their weight far enough forward, that they would automatically strike the ball a descending blow and make the ball go low on the green and run its way down to the hole. There's no sense in hitting the ball a mile up in the air when we've got enough room to let the ball skid its way down to the hole. Now let's discuss a very common fault in the chipping, and that is where the student, especially if the hole's that far away, wants to turn around and get a look at it. He wants to be looking at it almost as he hits it. The end result is that the swing's going to be going well to the left, even though he's set up to it fairly well. But as he hits this, because my shoulders are too open and way over here, he's making a stroke that causes the ball to go way over there, because he hasn't gotten his body in anything like the right position. The line across your hips, shoulders, thighs, toes, all want to remain the same. Let your weight go forward without opening up. Keep your shoulders in the right position so that when you make your swing through it, your swing goes in the direction you hope it will go. Incidentally, I was pretty well satisfied with the pattern of those shots in that last chip group.
They were all
Now
nice.
let's try one from a little shorter shot. In this case, I'm using an 8-iron, which is a little more lofted club. And I wanted to get this home to the audience. And that is that as the loft on the club increases, the ball should go a little farther back toward the back foot, and the weight should go a little farther toward the front foot, so that you are striking the ball with a little of a descending blow, letting it land safely on the green and trickle its way down to the hole. Most players in the shorter shots, where they're using a more lofted club, have a greater tendency to keep the ball too far forward and their weight too far back. So we want to get home clearly to them that as the loft on the face of the club increases, the ball wants to go a little farther back, keeping your body, everything at parallel and right angle, so that you're making a stroke that puts no side spin on the ball and as little back spin as possible. And you get that by keeping your wrists out of it and stroking it smoothly with your arms, letting the ball carry on the green and run its way down to the hole free of English. It does give a good result. Now a few suggestions about practice procedures for fun and games in chipping. I might add, to begin with, that most players should putt this, because it's only a foot to 18, 20 inches off the edge of the green. With the speed between the two grasses almost identical. And they would get a better result with a putter because they're more accustomed to using it. But they must practice then with the chip shots until they are as comfortable with the chip shot as they would be with a putter, at which time they'll have a better result putting it with the lofted clubs instead of putting it with a putter. In here, I've got a 4-iron in my hand because the distance I'm going to hit the ball on the fly is only about 2 feet, and the green's a little on the slow side. So I've got a fairly straight face club that I think will stop the ball very close to the hole, hitting it that way. And the shorter I carry it on the fly and still have it reach the hole, the more accurate it's going to be. And I keep 20, 25 balls in my pile and keep doing this at that distance until my touch can just feel instinctively how far to go back and how far to go through it to make the ball get to the hole with a little to spare. And then if I've been practicing enough to get my directional control, I'm going to have considerably better than an average of 2 from shots of this distance. Now that's a fairly good grouping. The one shot was a little too bold. Then when you've practiced at this distance, you use the same technique where the flag is a little farther in the green. With you the same distance, you'd take a straighter face club. Or where the flag remains constant and you get a little farther off the edge of the green, you'd take a club with a little more loft. And then you go through the same practice procedure again. The technique is important, but you're not going to get the use you should out of it unless you practice. Practice, practice, practice for touch. Touch cannot be taught. You have to acquire that. We now know how to hit our putts and our chip shots with a one-lever stroke. We've talked about techniques that will make you a better short game player. We've looked at typical problems and we've learned how to cure them. Most importantly, we've learned how to practice for fun and profit. Have a wonderful time with your short game and your lower scores.
camera highlights in the world of sports.
Dapper Paul Runyon of White Plains, New York, tees off in the 36-hole final of the PGA Championship at Shawnee on the Delaware. Slammin' Sammy Snead of West Virginia. Arriving at the green of the short fifth hole, Snead lines up a 6-foot putt. His ball misses the cup and Runyon is stymied. To have the hole, he must sink this putt, but how? After much thought, Runyon decides to use a niblick. The crowd is tense. So is Runyon, for that matter, but watch. Runyon, 5 up at the end of the morning round, tees off in the final 18. A cool, deliberate sharpshooter whose peculiar form makes his performance all the more amazing. Outdriven 30 and 40 yards by the more powerful Snead, Runyon's accuracy with short woods, irons, and particularly his putter proves the old golfing axiom that they don't pay off on the drives. Arriving at the 25th, Runyon's short pitch to the green stops within goodly putting distance of the cup. And the diminutive New York pro has the coveted PGA crown within his grasp. And there it is, the $1,000 putt that brings Paul Runyon the PGA title for the second time in his golfing career.
I think Paul Runyon was such a great short game artist because he was kind of small in stature. His long game maybe wasn't quite as good as somebody like Sam Snead, who played in the same era. Paul, I think, developed the short game out of necessity, and I think he became the best. Well, the thing that stood out the most with Paul Runyon was the fact that every time he missed a green, I was absolutely certain that he would get it up and down in 2. Now, I haven't had that feeling with anybody else that I've ever played with, and he could play some of the most remarkable shots out of bunkers that I wouldn't even dream of thinking about getting up and down in 2, and sure enough, he would. He was great with just little chip shots just off the green and little pitches over bunkers and things that were very, very difficult for most people, looked very simple to him.
Well, Glenn, we've got ourselves in a fairly awkward position, but fortunately we've got a very good lie. I would like to know if the green is soft or firm.
It's firm.
Firm. Well, let's have a go at it with a sand wedge because the shot requires just a straightforward, light pinch with no cut shot. Remember, folks, that the 3 important keys to good pitching is, number 1, to keep the palm of your lower hand in line with the directional position of the face of the club. Never let the right hand get behind that, as it'll take the loft off the head of the club. The second important key is to address the ball where you never overreach. In this case, I'm badly overreaching. My body is too low, forcing the club to be well below the bottom of the ball. If I straighten up until my arms comfortably stretched places the head of the club even with the bottom of the ball. Then the third key is to keep your weight slightly off balance toward your front foot so that you pinch the shot. Pinching the shot is when you hit the ball a slightly descending blow. Once you've got those 3 keys, keep your arms soft and relaxed, make a rhythmic swing back and a slightly accelerating stroke through the shot to toss the ball softly up on the green. Well, Glenn, we surely missed being in jail by just 1 yard, but as it is, this shot is mildly complicated. This is complicated because it is a little bit of a downhill lie, and we're pitching over a bunker, a corner of a bunker. If we hit it a little too easy and it bounced and ran back in here, we might take 4 to get it down. We're faced also that we're pitching onto a green that slopes away from us a tiny bit. Thus, I want to hit this with the most lofted club I have, which is a lob wedge. It has 60 degrees of loft to it. In addition, I want to pinch this a little more severely, but I want the height that goes with cutting it a little. So I'm going to put the ball a little back of center, weight off balance toward the front foot a little more than usual, and then freely hit through it to get the ball softly up in the air and bring it down against the green so it doesn't get too much forward motion. I like that. Now, Glenn, I want to try this shot from a rather poor lie. I've dropped the ball so that the ball is well obscured by grass. However, the turf is relatively soft, so I'm still going to go at it with a sand wedge. I want to still have those 3 basic fundamentals in it. But instead of hitting it with a dead straight flight, I'm opening up to the left to allow for the fact that I'm going to open the face of the club and cut the shot a little. And I'm going to have my weight a little farther off balance toward the front foot, so that I'll be going down firmly into it and getting a grip on the ball to pop it up out of that lie.
Shot. Nice shot, Paul.
I'll take that one. Loan me a ball. Let's put it in jail here for a second.
How would you treat that shot?
Well, certainly this is one that where a person has no more strength than I have. To try to play it directly at the hole is foolhardy. I've got two options. I must either turn, I can hardly see the ball, and you are allowed to part the grass enough under the rules of golf that you can see that there is a ball there. Then I would either go to the left so that if I did hit it, it has a chance to carry them and run down the hill and get on the green somewhere. Certainly my first task here is to avoid taking 4 from here. So if I can see where the ball is, I will then pick the club up very abruptly, so I have to cut through very little grass going through it, and try to get the ball just anywhere on the green. I'm making a very upright stroke and a very hard swing going through it to just pop the ball out and anywhere on the green. Because it's foolhardy for anyone, even the best of strengths or the strongest of people, it's foolhardy for them to go too straight at that. Because if they dump it in here, then they've got a good chance to take 4. At least there, I'm not going to take 4. I've got an outside chance to make 2. And if I ever made 2 from that particular lie, my chest is going to go out like that. I think I'm great then. This is a real nasty situation. I might use another option. I might take an unplayable lie penalty, which allows me to go within 2 club length, right or left, not near the hole. And I might elect to do that. If I've got the least little chance of hitting this ball out of here, particularly if I'm playing at match play and my opponent's on the green in 2, I'm going to take the gamble. But if I'm playing at medal play, I probably would drop it here and pitch it and hope to get it down in 2 from here to save the stroke. This just might be a shot that the good Lord himself couldn't get down in 2. It involves some extreme incidents. For instance, it's a very steep downslope and with the ball very steeply below my feet. So I've got to have a very open face position to get the ball up enough to have any hopes of stopping it anyways near the flag. My weight must go well over to the left or I'll hit the shot fat. My weight must come up over it or I'll shank it because the ball's way below my feet. Once in that position, strike it with your balance as accurately in position as you can to cut the ball sharply up in the air. Now that's why I said this is an extremely precarious shot. I believe that's about as good as I could hope to do it. The most common cause of shanking is the tendency to swing the club into a convex position or get the shaft of the club and the head of the club inside your forearm. It makes it work in opposites. It goes out too far and either misses the ball altogether or hits it on the neck of the club. The correction, therefore, is to keep the tension out of your arms so that your arms will fall in closer to you, and then don't let the club head get into an inside position. Let the club stay outside, so when you go through it, there's no danger you catching the ball on the neck of the club. Now, another short shot problem is the tendency to get scared and go under or over the ball, called the yips. Now, this begins by having a tendency to address the ball with the club way below the ball. Then if I did make a good swing, I'll hit the ground so far behind it that I get scared and start to flinch. But if I get the habit of addressing the ball with my arms comfortably stretched and find the weight of the club stretching my arms with the head of the club even with the bottom, then if my head stays still, I can swing it down all I want with my hands and it will catch the ball correctly. Under reaching a 1/4 of an inch will do much to help you stop yipping, because once you've hit a few fat shots, then you begin to get scared and do the opposite, which is to top the shot. Here, if I get scared and start to pull up, I either miss it or top it. I mustn't get my head to vary in position. I don't want to get up that way as I'm coming through it, because that won't allow the club head to get under the ball. And the worse you get, the more tense you get, and it begets itself. Again, we've got to understand how to keep our head quietly in position, particularly height-wise, so that I can then swing the club down and through it with my hands, knowing that I'm not going to hit the ground too heavily behind the ball. This is a practice procedure for fun and profit in pitching. In this case, I want my weight preponderantly on my back foot so that my club will follow the contour of the earth. Then make a simple little rhythmic stroke at it and let the loft on the face of the club pop the ball up in the air and trickle on toward the hole. This uphill shot is particularly easy when the person realizes that if he keeps his body vertically, he's going to just keep pounding the club into the bank. It can't work. So you just got to, and you've got to have your feet a little farther apart so that you won't fall over. If I keep my feet together and try to put it here, I'll fall down the hill. I've got to have an anchor out here. But again, my head is in front of right angle, but well back of vertical. And here, then I just pass the club rhythmically down and through it to pop the balls up in the air. As we move down to the foot of this slope, and we're no longer on that steep upslope, I need a change of clubs. I'm picking up the sand wedge that has 6 degrees more loft than this pitching wedge, because I need this ball to get up considerably higher because it's going to go a little farther and has to stop in the same running distance. So I've got a 56-degree lofted club now, but we still want to just swing the club rhythmically back and forth, letting it swing like a weight on the end of a string, weight a little off balance to the front foot, and then just pass it through it to let it pop softly up on the green and trickle its way toward the hole. If the lie was down a bit, where it's beginning to be into a buried position, I'd get a club with even more loft. And I've got one in the bag that has more loft than this. May I have the lob wedge, please? Because here I've got to pinch it a little more in order to get to it. This club has 60 degrees of loft to it. That allows me to pinch it enough that I'm not likely to hit it fat and still get it to pitch high enough to stay within that limit. Continuing the practice procedures for fun and profit, in a little more precarious situation, I still need the extreme loft of this club plus a little more. So I'm going to open it because I'm coming off a downslope that would make the ball fly very low. So my weight's off balance to the front foot so that I can swing parallel to the ground. I keep the face of the club a fraction open and swing the club down and through it, passing it through at an angle that will not let me hit the ground behind the ball. Then if I can get a touch that is sufficiently geared to pitch the ball softly up on the green, it still should work. My weight's off balance to the left, and I'm swinging down and through it to pop the ball softly up on the green and bring it down somewhere close to the hole. All of this practice and work we've been doing for these last few days remind me of a cute story that occurred at Newport during the play of the Golf Digest Invitational. I'm practicing my pitch shots as I usually am doing, and Gardner Dickinson walks by, and without pausing, he says, "Isn't it remarkable that somebody who's particularly good at something is always practicing?" And it never stopped. He kept right on going. In most cases, the sand trap shot is best played with a very slightly open stance and a very slight open blade to ensure that the bouncing part of the club is down so that you are sclaffing the sand, that you can hit down and get a skinning shot, that it's not going to penetrate too much. When the shaft of the club is in a perpendicular position, neither forward nor back, the leading edge of this club is 15 degrees above the trailing edge. Thus, when I hit the sand, the trailing edge sclaffs the ground and is called the bouncer. It makes the club bounce when it comes into it. If I got the shaft of the club too far forward, or if I turned the head of the club in until the leading edge was lower than the trailing edge, then it's a digging position. It acts like a plowshare, and the force of the swing causes the club to dig too much sand. Now, the largest percentage of our bunker shots needs the tendency to make it bounce. So we not only keep the shaft perpendicular, but we open the face of the club a few degrees, which raises the leading edge a little more, lowers the trailing edge a little more, and ensures a greater degree of bounce. And at this time, I'd like to go through some of the options that are available to you and the influence it has on the shots. For example, we're playing to a flag here that is in a reasonably confined space, but not a terribly confined one. So the shot is not a very difficult one because the bank is far enough away that I can take it out low or high and still have very little likelihood of hitting the bank unless I miss the shot completely. In this case, I'm going to play a perfectly average type of bunker shot where I'm breaking the arc just enough that the swing is going up and down in a V-like motion. And if I go up and down at the same angle and my head stays still, I'm assured that I'll come back to the same spot from which I started. Now the thing that makes this a reasonably simple sand shot is the fact that it's in the front edge of the bunker, and if anything, on a slightly uphill lie. And the flag now is not in a precarious position for this shot because this is going to have reasonable height. No problem with stopping it. The problem is just getting the right touch so that it stops close enough to the hole for one putt, hopefully. This is not a difficult shot. Ask me, did I like that? If I want to spin the ball, I let my weight lean up a little closer to the ball so I hit a little closer to it, taking perhaps 15 to 20% of the sand behind the ball and 70 or 80% of it in front. That causes you to get a cushion of sand, but you're taking a larger percentage of the sand in the front, which puts spin on the ball. This ball, if I'm executing it correctly, will spin fairly hard once it gets up there. Because that, I've caught the ball as perfectly as I could catch it with that kind of a shot, and it's a very safe shot. There's very little likelihood of me topping it unless I move my body so far that I hit the bottom of the arc of the swing on the front side of the ball. The bottom of the arc of the swing is a little on the front side, but I'm still under the ball getting a good cushion of sand. Now another ball, please. In this case, I want the ball to come out higher because this bank is this deep, but it's very close to me. And the pin is even 6 or 8 feet closer to me this side. So in this case, I want to get the V to narrow so that I'm getting more of the force going down, which drives the ball up more quickly. Yes, I have to hit it harder or I'll drop it on the bank. But once I've gotten that, I've got a type of shot that will meet the needs of the thing I've explained. Here, I'm keeping my weight a little closer to the ball, but I'm now breaking the arc, getting the V up much more abruptly, going down at the same angle, and hitting the sand a tiny, tiny bit farther behind the ball because I want to squeeze it up in the air. I want to get the ball up faster so that it comes down at a little steeper angle and with at least the same amount of spin. Now let me see if I can execute the shot where the face of the club is open to lower the bouncer a little more than normal, so that the ball comes up nicely without any danger of it penetrating and leaving it in the bunker. Now that was just about as perfectly executed as I could hope to get it. In the case of the explosion shot, the face of the club is open so that the trailing edge is down, creating a bouncing tendency. But that can't be used for any more than 20, 25 yards for a weak person or a little longer for a very strong one. Here we've got a shot of approximately 45 yards. So now we have to use a type of shot that we're going to hit the ball first and the sand later, but keep enough loft on the club that when the ball settles on the green, if I've hit it with the right power, it should stop somewhere in the middle of the green. But I'm now playing a pitch shot. I've got the ball back in my stance rather far so that I'm reasonably sure not to hit the sand before I hit the ball. I want to be sure and hit the ball first. So I'm playing a regular pitch shot with a fairly severe pinch and a light cut. Here again, we've got a situation where the lie is moderately good, but the slope is down and the ball is a little below the feet. The problem is that I need to pitch it far enough to be sure not leave it in the bunker. But I'm also then landing on a spot that's downhill. So this again must have a very close contact to the ball with a fairly upright swing with the face open so that you can get a little spin on the ball. You got to hit a little closer to the ball than you'd like to. But if you've done your homework and you've got a good technique, you've got a reasonable chance of hitting the ball out of this and keeping it somewhere near the hole. Two of the most common problems in the sand trap is for the student to get concerned and pull out of the shot and scull it a mile across the green. Or having done that the last time he was in the trap, taking a dive at it and chunking it and just letting it hit the bank. And the correction for both of them is the same. If you've gotten your measurement correctly, and then you make a smooth, rhythmic swing at it, breaking the arc a little bit and throwing the club down and through it, the ball pops up out of the trap and is on its way toward the target. You must be sure to keep your head quietly in position. Don't try to help the law of gravity with your head, and don't try to resist it with your hands. Keep your head the right distance from the ball. Keep your weight a little off balance toward the front foot, and then swing at it freely with your arms, and let the club head swing through it rhythmically and pop the balls up and onto the green. Keep your head quietly in position to cure both the tendency to scull the shot or to chunk it or to hit it fat and leave it in the bunker. It is a common mistake among all golfers when playing a buried lie to turn the face of their sand wedge in to make it become a digger instead of a bouncer, when they've got a club in the bag that's automatically a digger and it's got more loft than the sand wedge has. That's their lob wedge. You don't have to turn it in to make it dig. You just pick it up a little, slash into the sand, and let it bring the ball up and out of the bunker. And it'll bring it out more softly than the sand wedge will because you've retained the loft and it gets under it easily and naturally without having to turn it in. Here's a wonderful drill for bunker practice. We've got a board about 18, 20 inches long. We bury it in the sand and then drag a nice, generous portion of sand on the top of it and put the ball in the middle of it. When I make a swing at this, it brings the ball up and out without even having to swing at it hard. You get a bouncing effect. It augments the bounce of the club. It makes it a perfectly simple way to get it out. All the student has to do then is hit 2 or 3 of them from that, then back up and hit just 10% harder doing the same thing, and he's got it. It's a wonderful way of getting the student to get a feeling of how the club should behave when they're playing from the sand. I've had a wonderful time. Thanks to you all. It's been great.
We hope you've enjoyed Paul Runyon's short way to lowest scoring. Now you can build your complete game with new videos from Golf Digest. They feature Bob Toski, Dean of the Golf Digest Schools, and schools-tested instruction that has worked for golfers worldwide since 1971. Each half-hour video cassette in this new learning library series focuses on a single aspect of your game. A swing for a lifetime shows you how to develop one and make it repeat. Find Your Own Fundamentals lets you build a solid foundation of pre-swing basics. In Driving for Distance, you'll master the keys to length and consistency on your tee shots. Sharpen Your Short Irons will make you a crisper 5 to 9 iron player. And Saving Par from Sand will help you get up and down from greenside bunkers. For more information, just complete and mail in the enclosed order warranty card or call our Golf Digest video toll-free number, 1-800-453-4005.